what I've heard, that kind of point along this timeline for walkable communities, sidewalks, et cetera, for sustainable communities. And it all starts to sound very familiar. But since I wasn't at those meetings, I just have to go off of what I hear. So it's very important, I think, that we as a board understand this link. Because like so many federal programs, once you stick your head in the noose, you're done. You're done with the federal link. So.
The trouble is, there's so many towns and officials that love spending other people's money, so they're just biting hard right on.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I derailed you.
I just think it's extremely important as a representative republic. It can't be my opinion. Like Jefferson said, you have to educate people. You have to know where this comes from. If everybody knew that this is all United Nations, all the way up to here, and you think it's the best thing going, I can't make that decision. But if you make the decision to go forward with a lot of what it's dictating, and you don't have this information, it's not a very good thing. You need to understand where it comes from. You need to, not only me, you need to go out and ask your elected officials if they support, and I mean town elected officials too, do they support the promotion of this agenda? They might support environmental justice or saving the environment, but if they're going step by step through the process of promoting sustainable development from Agenda 21, then as an elected official, you need to be able to tell them, then you're not getting reelected then. That's the only way to stop it. That's our last-ditch, effort to prevent this. Oh, the trail is the trail. As a town, if we want to fix that, we should get together, gather our own money up, our own resources, and do it ourselves. Why do we have to have grants from the federal government where money was taken away from your neighbor at the next town who may make a little bit more money and have it redistributed to you because you want to build a trail? Let's all get together and let's build a trail, and then it'll be our trail.
So do you know of any resources that, or organizations or websites that would provide information on various elected or electable officials? I mean, certainly not in the town. We can talk to Clifton or anybody here that's been elected or whatever, right? But whether they be candidates for state office or federal office, is there anybody who is really focused on this and is going out and asking those questions and looking at how people that are in Congress are voting and things like that to track this and provide and spread the word on how various candidates or senators or
yes.
representatives or whoever
yes.
are voting?
Somebody asked me if they support United Nations Agenda 21.
Say that again.
If you ask an elected official if they support, is the term United Nations Agenda 21 or just Agenda 21?
Agenda 21, and most elected officials do not know what it's about. If you are in the southern part of the state, where you're influenced greatly by Massachusetts and places that have hundreds of towns that are signed on to the Cities for Climate Protection, or ICLEI, which is also known as the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. There's only 3 in New Hampshire: Wolfboro, Ippen, Portsmouth. They've signed on. They pay, depending on the amount of their population, they pay taxpayer money to belong to ICLEI. Now they've renamed ICLEI to ICLEI USA, so they have a USA department. Does anybody really know that it's the United Nations Agenda 21? Most do not. If you're a political person down in the southern part of the state, if you don't promote sustainable development, you will not be reelected, because there's so many people down there as a representative republic want sustainable development. Half of them do not know where it comes from. They feel it's all environmental, we should be sustainable and everything else. So a public official has to be really careful.
Well, you bring up a great point there, and this is how it strikes me, and it matches Cliff's thoughts too, is this evil and bad? Not necessarily. It depends, do the voters want it? And you mentioned down there in southern New Hampshire, or some of the Massachusetts communities, people want this stuff. Is this right for Brookfield? We're a pretty independent little town. I think that...
Well, I mean, that's why I asked the question, is like,
yeah.
I may be looking for, somebody to vote for that is against this. You may be looking for somebody to vote for that's for this, but, I guess my question was, how do we find out, right?
But I think
we interrupted him before he said.
It's just that we're such an independent little town. We don't like people from outside telling us how to do things. We really don't seem to do that.
I don't think you can speak for
to build a border wall.
Yeah, could we apply for that grant? Yeah, I don't know. Is that sustainable?
To answer your question, Rob, you asked me, are there any public officials, elected officials that are...
Well, I asked specifically about resources for, is there somebody who's tracking this and is publishing their understanding?
Okay, HR 1146, March 17, 2011, that's this year. HR 1146, look it up. Ask this congressman why he wants us out of the United Nations.
Which congressman is that?
Ron Paul.
Oh, okay.
He's got people signing on to it.
He's not the only one.
And a bill to end membership of the United States in the United Nations. This act may be cited as the American Sovereignty Restoration Act. This is why it's bad. No outside international body or council should be dictating to the American people what they're going to do with their land, property, or anything else they own. We are supposed to choose that, not them. My contention is that if the people in the southern part of the state and the people that promote sustainable development knew where it was coming from, they would stop it dead in its tracks. But they don't know this. And it's a rule. It's a rule not to mention the United Nations. This is a quote. It's a quote from a city planner of Seattle, Washington. At times, the political agenda embodied in sustainable development is implemented under other names for the purpose of political expediency. J. Gary Lawrence, a planner of the city of Seattle, an advisor to the President's Council on Sustainable Development, said in 1988 that participating in a UN-advocated planning process would very likely bring out many who would actively work to defeat any elected official undertaking local Agenda 21. Chapter 28 is local Agenda 21. So we will call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, smart growth. Smart growth, because if your legislator's not knowing where it comes from, has written it into our laws. It's actually in this book, Smart Growth Principles. And there's elected officials that promote this without knowing where it's coming from. The only way to do it is to tell the elected official that they need to either educate themselves or, not promote it.
This is
strengthening the roles of workers in their trade unions. That's another one that they support. In Agenda 21. Chapter 29.
Oh, I'm not arguing that. I just have, after your initial presentation quite a while back, I did some outside research and found some interesting dissenting opinions on people who were against Agenda 21 from across the political spectrum. It wasn't just, conservative Republicans or libertarians, but also conservative Democrats and even a few of the other folks. And it all came down to property rights, which I found very interesting, is because the concept of the property rights, and this is one of those, you stick your head in the news once you sign on to these things. The example that was given was mixed-use development. And that is considered to be a sustainable development, where you take an old mill, for example, and you make some of it residential, you make some of it like ground floor retail. We don't have any mills in Brookfield, so it's not an issue. But once you sign on to that principle for your zoning, it effectively limits what the property owner can do with their property. And if you don't like it, tough. And that's one of the unfortunate outcomes. We're such a small town, we have a very straightforward set of circumstances here, as opposed to these large communities elsewhere in the country. But when you get really far down that line of how this infiltrates the zoning and the planning activities of regions, people lose their property rights very quickly.
Land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument in the accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice. When I sit in meetings at the Stratford Regional Planning Commission, you have a Federal Highway Administration who has a sustainability department in their department, talks about social justice a lot.
I'm sorry, you looked like you were quoting from something. Can you tell us what?
This is from my research.
Yep. What was the source of that quote?
Exactly.
What document is that in?
Karl Marx.
Welcome to Agenda 21 of the United Nations.
That's right. Boy, I'm sitting here behind you going, yes, yes, and then.
I'm still looking.
It's probably Van Jones.
I believe it was said by, I'm not going to have a good answer for you. I'd have to research who exactly said it. But it was said by someone at the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements in 1976. And this is where the first formal policy on land use was adopted by a UN agency.
So, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we've been going for at least 25 minutes, I think.
So my point is about the comprehensive economic development strategy. They just want to know, is there anything in Brookfield that we want to apply for grants from the EDA? That's what they're asking. Other towns, other towns are utilizing the money.
Can we build a wall?
Can we put a border and an electronic fence?
Border wall? How about a toll down by Hoots?
A toll. Can we have a toll going on
And I'll
109?
leave these here also. These are books from the American Planning Association.
Didn't we vote not to pay our dues?
Yeah.
Yes, and we have not paid our dues to
Apparently
SRPC.
that did no good.
Well, no, it's not a requirement that we pay dues.
I'm
It's
sorry.
not a requirement that we have to pay dues.
You don't have to pay dues. If you do not pay dues, you don't get to have 2 members on the board there.
Yeah, you can't buy your extra.
We have one, because we're required by law to participate, we have at least one voting person, which in this case is
Okay,
Ed.
we don't have to pay for them.
No.
Okay, so it's free.
Just lastly, it's just important that if you are a town that has very limited resources and, like I said, you have something, like some of your infrastructure is completely broken down and somebody's going to come by and help you get grant money to fix it, it's very difficult to fault a town for doing that. I don't know if there's another route. Maybe instead of sending your money to the feds, maybe you could keep it and then you could fix your own infrastructure. Don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, I mean, there's 2 general approaches that towns take. One is that they build a reserve fund, that if and when something breaks, they'll have the money available. Actually, there's 3 approaches. The second approach would be that when something breaks, they raise taxes for that year and pay for it. And the third approach is that they'll bond it, right? They'll borrow the money and pay it back over a period of years. And none of those require grants or anything like that. I mean, this has been going on for centuries. The towns have been doing things like this, right? I mean, it sucks if something you didn't expect to breaks, but we needed a salt barn, and so for 2 or 3 years we put away $20,000 out of our budget until we had enough to build the thing, right? And we have maintenance reserve funds for various things, and that's just the way that responsible citizens and responsible towns operate.
And we don't need a bunch of consultants.
Nope.
I invite everybody to research this more on your own. I'll have these documents available for anybody that wants to look at them. It's a lot of reading to do. It's a good idea to just refer back to it. Whenever you hear somebody say sustainable development, look at Agenda 21 and look how it follows this line up.
I can mention on my own experience, having looked into this after your initial presentation a while back, there's a lot out there on this. A lot. This is not just Ed. This is not some crazy conspiracy theory. There is a lot of stuff out there. People pushing back against this whole linked chain.
So Ed, one final question for me, I think. You said that every 10 years that each country has to present a report.
Yes.
Does the UN score those or comment on them or something like that so that we as the United States can know that the UN thinks we're doing a good job or a bad job as far as Agenda 21 is concerned?
2012, I believe, is the next 10 years. Did I do that arithmetic right? 2002, yeah, 2012.
2012 is when it's
Okay.
due, the report's due.
You're going to hear in the news about something called the 2012 Earth Summit.